morning, everyone. My name is Mario Aldayuz. I'm recording this one unscripted, so I'm not using my teleprompter, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Couldn't sleep. Well, I got some sleep. I got like 4 hours of sleep, so I'm all good. But wanted to share, I've had a couple people ask me about intentional communications and my project that I have dubbed AI-ify Mario, or Project Freedom. I don't know, whatever I call it. But anyways, my whole goal was to create something that allowed me to be more intentional with my communications and to really reduce the anxiety that I feel around communications as a whole. So let me back it up a little bit and explain to you really quickly what I mean by anxiety from communications. I hate phone calls. I spend 8 to 18 hours a day on Zoom generally. During that time, my phone buzzes or buzzed constantly. And I would get calls from people all over the world who, honestly, in most cases, just wanted to sell me something. Or they were a scraper on the internet that picked up my number being associated with one of my enumerative number of businesses I've started over the years, or some project I was a part of, nonprofits and different nonprofit boards, and heck, my errand registration at a company I used to work for in the wireless service industry has my phone number listed on their registration. Literally everywhere on the internet you look, and my phone number, 301-643-6381, is all over the place. And that caused a lot of frustrations for me and anxiety for me, because I would get these calls and I'd answer them for the longest time. Every single call that came in, out of fear of it being some critical, important call that I was going to miss. And so I'd answer these phone calls, and invariably it was just people that wanted something, and there was no value that they were providing to my life. There was no benefit that they were providing. So I got into this point where I had so many inbound communications, text messages, WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, phone calls, Zooms, Slack messages, emails, you name it. I had messages coming in and communications coming in from all over the place. Not to mention that about, I don't know, 12 or so years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, when I was in real estate in Blue Ridge, Georgia, I was working a lead network for a bunch of real estate agents. And part of that was using my personal cell phone to communicate with a lot of the people that were purchasing or selling properties. And what ended up happening is I basically synced my phone to the CRM we were using at the time. And in doing so, I ingested thousands of contacts from that CRM. And there were people that I was never going to talk to, never had interest in talking to. But on the off chance that they called me, I needed to know who they were, because the real estate office was forwarding their communications to my cell phone. And so I was on call 24/7. I was answering these calls, and along the way, somehow I switched between Android and iPhone, back to iPhone, and it started duplicating all of my contacts. So we got this compounding problem, right? I have tons and tons of inbound communications. I have thousands of contacts in my phone, and then they got duplicated over and over again, to where I had sometimes 3 to 6 duplicates of certain contacts in my phone from various sources like Gmail or this contact sync or any number of places, where I had a total of 12,000 contacts in my phone, which doesn't sound like a lot, right? But ultimately it ended up actually costing me money. What happened was I had tried to send some money through Zelle for an albeit small purchase that I needed to complete in a timely manner. My method, the seller's preferred method of me sending this money, was Zelle. So I went into Zelle to send, it was a couple $1,000s. It wasn't anything crazy. And when I went into Zelle, it actually locked up Zelle. I had so many contacts in my phone that when Zelle asked me really quickly, because I don't really use Zelle, when Zelle asked me very quickly, do you want to sync your contacts from your phone into Zelle? I was like, oh, sure. Like, not even thinking that a system wouldn't be capable of handling 12,000 contacts, right? And so I hit yes, and instantly my banking app crashed and I couldn't open it. I tried to click on Zelle. I would try and click all these different things, and the app was frozen. USA's app just completely locked up. Went on the internet, USA's app completely locked up. Spent hours on hold with tech support and trying to get it figured out. They ended up having to basically delete my Zelle account and all of the contacts associated with my Zelle account and restart my Zelle account. Well, by this time, my purchase window had passed and the seller wouldn't accept any other method of funds transfer. And this was a totally legitimate purchase that was for some digital assets that I needed. And those digital assets were critical in another transaction where I needed to be able to offer these digital assets that I was purchasing. And long story short, I missed out on the window. I missed the opportunity and I lost a sale. So it cost me probably in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000. Now that may not be a lot to some people, but $10,000 to $15,000 not happening because my phone had too many contacts and the seller was kind of a pain in the butt and only accepted Zelle was the breaking straw for me. And I said to myself, you know, it's crazy that I can automate just about everything in my life. And the one thing I can't fix is, because it all hit me like a freight train. Like, I can't fix my own technology problem. And I can't fix my own communications anxiety. I can't find a way to automate or augment with automations and some sort of AI, a system that will work for me. So what I ended up doing was I got a hold of my trusty Rolodex of 12,000 contacts, and I started thinking of who could help. So I had some idea, a framework in my head that I've been kind of ruminating around for a while of this AI-ify yourself, this personal contact system. And we all joke about using voice AI for our personal purposes, right? Or at least some of us do. Those of us in the voice AI industry obviously, make jokes like that all the time, huh? But for those of us that do actually joke about using voice AI in our personal lives, like imagine if you could have an AI virtual assistant. Now, this happened to be when I was in the process of hiring an executive assistant for my day job, which is HL Pro Tools and Modal. And shout out to HL Pro Tools and Modal. It happened to be when I was in the process of hiring an executive assistant. And I was like, man, I wish I had an executive assistant for my life. And not that I don't trust her, because I trust her implicitly. This young woman that I hired is absolutely freaking phenomenal. But I won't name her right now because I don't want to blow up her spot when it comes to all of you DMing her. But she is absolutely wonderful. I didn't want to subject her to my personal life. Not only that, I mean, it's kind of uncomfortable, right? To basically get naked in front of somebody and show them all of your personal communications, even if they are your most trusted advisor. Imagine how many court cases have been fought and won from one person who got, not ever saying that this person would do this, but from one person that accidentally had an insecure password, or the court subpoenaed and they had access to all your communications, right? Like, you're hosed. So I don't really trust people, and I didn't want to subject her to this undue challenge with bearing the burden of my personal communications. So how do I do this in a digital format that works? So here we go. I am going to show you, and I will attempt to switch this to show you my screen, but I'm recording this on Loom and I don't know if it's going to work. So we're going to try it. Dear Loom, it's very stupid. That didn't work, by the way. It's very stupid that I can't switch from sharing only my camera to sharing a different thing in the middle of a video, even if I pause it. Anyways, I digress. So I talked a little bit about my story and having 12,000 contacts, and I want to show you something that for me is very impactful and very powerful. One, you'll notice that in reviewing the contacts currently on my list, there are 0 duplicates. There are only 63 contacts in my phone. 63. Those are 63 people that have intentionally reached out to me since I started this project. So when I started this project, I took all 12,000 contacts. Yes, backed up my phone. I'm not an idiot. I backed up my phone to iMazing. Shout out iMazing. iMazing is an awesome, I don't get any affiliate commissions for this, but iMazing is the best Apple backup software on the market, especially for iPhones, iPads, and things like that. Anyways, I created a massive 1 terabyte iMazing backup, and I hit Control A, delete on all of my contacts. I wiped my phone completely clean, with the exception of Danny Thompson, Matt DeCino, Graham Leitner, Tiffany Wright, and Mallory Gordon Grader. Those are the 5 people I retained in my phone. Why? I work with Danny. Matt's my boss. Graham's my other boss. Tiffany's Matt and Graham's executive assistant, and Mallory coordinates all of our travel, is also one of my best friends and people I talk to. Everybody else got deleted out of my phone. Everyone. And so I started this project with 5 contacts in my phone. 12,000 contacts to 5 contacts in my phone. How insane is that, right? You're like, oh, not that big of a deal. I'm sorry, if you have digital anxiety, it is a pretty big deal. So what I ended up doing is figuring that I could take those contacts, and if I didn't see them in my phone and I didn't worry about duplicates anymore, because I condensed the duplicates from 12,000 down to 4,500 using an Excel spreadsheet, which you would think is not rocket science, right? But apparently it is rocket science, because Contacts Plus, the most powerful app for contacts management, and trust me, I've done all of my research, the only app capable of deduplicating that number of things took a crap as soon as I tried to deduplicate all of my contacts. It just shit the bed. And so I essentially had to figure out a way of, how do I take these contacts and not necessarily lose them, but give myself like a primer with some added value. So what I ended up doing is taking the 4,500 contacts out of iMessage, exporting them into, or the 12,000 contacts, ultimately extracting the backup from iMazing, turning it into a CSV file, and running a simple deduplication script off of Excel. Wow, holy crap. 5 minutes later, 4,500 contacts down, or down to 4,500 contacts. I took those contacts and I uploaded them to HighLevel. From there, I started crafting my system. So I am going to go through this and show you various parts of my system. All right, so I have in HighLevel, in my build, which is olliebot.ai, I have a total of 5,800 records now inside of OllieBot. That's up from 4,500 records that I imported into a blank sub-account that is my personal sub-account inside of HighLevel. That means that I have, in the last week or 2 since this project started, I have received over like 1,300 people reach out to me via some communication stream: WhatsApp, iMessage, text message, phone call, you name it. I have received email. I have received approximately 1,300 to 1,500 new contacts in the system. Okay, that's a lot of contacts, guys. My number is public. I don't mind it. I hope that if someone ever needs to reach out to me, that, you know, they have the ability to do so. And I've had many great, engaging, wonderful conversations with complete strangers that reached out to me from the internet. I encourage you to do so. That said, it's a lot. So I now have 5,800 contacts in my CRM, and I had to start somewhere, right? So this essentially goes into a make scenario, which I'll pull up now. And in this make scenario, what we have is essentially a way for HighLevel to add contacts to my phone. Now, this is adding contacts to my phone that are known contacts inside of HighLevel. So if I flip back over to this screen right here, you'll see a bunch of tags. One of those tags is called known. Then you see a bunch of people with blank tags. These are people that have reached out to me, these blank tags that I, quite frankly, don't give a shit about. They are spam callers. They are people that have reached out to me for any number of reasons and haven't bothered to complete the process, which is go through my AI to get a hold of me. So you can see, for example, this guy only has his first name, only first name, only first name, only first name, only first name, first and last name, didn't pass the test. I will not talk to these people. So they will never make it into my contacts list. And I'll explain why that's important here in a little bit. But essentially, the way that it works is in my automation section, I have a check contact, CloseBot, or contacts plus, and contact created send to contacts plus. And what this does is if they have their first and last name and or their tag was updated, so they have the appropriate information and does not include known, meaning they're not already an existing contact, blah, 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 blah. When that contact is created, it is webhooked into Make. Now, why Make specifically? It was convenient at the time. I will switch it to N8N. But inside of Make, it gets that webhook, goes through a router. If they have an email, it updates that email in Contacts Plus. See, like so. It puts in their contact ID into their URL and also adds a note with their contact ID into the system. Why is that important? Because if I ever need to reference them against HighLevel or resync the database, their contact ID is right here. Okay, so I now have the ability to easily pull up their contact via my phone, because if I click this, it automatically launches the HighLevel app, or in theory, that's how it's supposed to work. If I need to reference their contact, I have their contact information. But this checks to see whether or not they have an email. If it does, it syncs it to Contacts Plus with an email. If they don't and it's phone only, then it sends to Contacts Plus with just the phone. Now, why Contacts Plus? Because Contacts Plus is the only way to two-way sync data into iOS that I have found that is reliable. So I use Contacts Plus to manage my centralized contact database. And I'm not going to pull up Contacts Plus just because it does have a lot of personal information for people in it. And I can't redact that information and or not show it easily. So I am just going to exclude the Contacts Plus. Beep. Just imagine that you're in Contacts Plus and you're looking at my contacts list and it's got everyone there. And then there's a nice little sync button. And the sync button goes into iOS, and that happens like every minute or so, essentially. Or basically as soon as contacts are created. But once that happens, my contact, let's say that I get, my first problem was like, I get a bunch of text messages that I don't care about. They're banking text messages, they're random people texting me. Somehow my number got leaked to like one of those business copier services that sell you a copier. Yeah, I don't have a place for a copier. You couldn't get the copier in my front door if you tried. My front doorway is so small in my house. And I don't have an office. I don't even have like a team anymore. I've got like a ragtag band of misfits, but nothing I need a copier for, right? Well, somehow my number got leaked. Somebody didn't like me, submitted my number for one of those copier services, or a scraper picked it up and dumped it in a lead list. Well, now I get messages from every copier salesman in the greater Cleveland, Ohio area. I was really sick of saying stop, because they'd be like, hey, this is David. We met at Names Common Restaurant. Okay, it's totally possible that I've been there. Or they'd name a restaurant around the corner from my old office, which I still live around the corner from. So it's like they would try and get past my, alligator brain and gatekeeper self, and they'd get past it. And I'd end up in this conversation for like 5 minutes with this person that wanted to do nothing but sell me a copier. And so what I ended up doing is creating a integration with CloseBot. Shout out to Bryce Decora and Laura Decora, the proprietors of CloseBot, because I figured out a way to funnel all of my communications through CloseBot by way of a platform called MyCRMSIM. Why is that important? Because I had to figure out a way to get my iMessage and WhatsApp messages into HighLevel and into CloseBot. Gary comes in with this solution of being able to offer $30 per month for iOS and $30 a month for WhatsApp to be able to sync my communications into HighLevel. Cool. Great deal. Not a bad price at all. Why? My phone bill is like $600 anyways. Why is it $600? Because I have like 8 lines with MyCRMSIM for other businesses and various purposes. They work super well. So when he came to me with his iMessage solution, I was like, this is dumb. And then, long story short, at some point, I was like, actually, that's kind of genius, because I can take all of my personal communications and synchronize them into HighLevel. Why does that matter? Because HighLevel syncs to CloseBot. Why does that matter? Because CloseBot is now the gatekeeper for my messaging service. So essentially what happens is when someone first texts my phone or hits me up on WhatsApp, MyCRMSIM picks it up off of the Mac Mini that is tied to my iPhone that is sitting on my desk to the left, or I don't know, anyways, to this side. And so it picks up the iMessages and RCS messages and WhatsApp messages off of the Mac Mini and syncs them into HighLevel as general communications channel SMS/iMessage, which kicks off the CloseBot workflow, because CloseBot says, oh, hey, look, someone reached out to Mario via one of these communication channels. So the first thing that happens is it explains a little bit about using AI, a little bit about who I am, what I'm doing, and this whole intentional communications living that I have established. It then gathers their first and last name, determines their urgency for contacting, and determines the reason for contacting me in the first place. A lot of people just want to book an appointment on my calendar. So what it does is it says, sure, if you want to book an appointment on Mario's calendar, I will give you a 5-minute slot to anybody that wants to book, copy or salesman or not, a 5-minute slot for Mario to give you a call if I determine that it's reasonable to call you. So that gives me the control of determining whether or not it's reasonable for me to call them, books it on my calendar in the event that I do need to call them. I review the appointment notes, delete the appointment if it's not relevant, or keep the appointment and call them if it is relevant. They haven't gotten to me yet. I still haven't seen their communications because all of my notifications for iMessage and WhatsApp are turned off, except for certain people, and I'll explain that in a minute. So if they do want to book, they're able to book on my calendar. It books into their information, continues having a conversation. Well, let's say that they get aggressive with me, or they get aggressive with my bot. My bot is named Ollie. Ollie is named after my German Shepherd, Oliver Queen, who passed away about 1.5 years ago, and he was like my guardian angel. He and my other dog, Harley Quinn, 2 best friends in the entire world. Obviously, I'm not super great at people. I love dogs. I'm super great with dogs. Dogs love me. Ergo, dog becomes best friends. So Ollie always protected me. Everywhere I went, if there were weird people around or he sensed that someone had nefarious intentions, I could feel his energy and I almost knew what he was thinking. And he would think, this is not a safe situation. I need to go the other direction or get out of Dodge, or I need to react to it, right? And so I was very in tune with his emotions. I've always felt like he embodied who I want to represent me in an AI form. So Ollie, my assistant, who, if you go into my agent's dashboard in CloseBot, and you go in to edit this persona, Ollie has a very awesome persona that I've created inside of CloseBot to represent me. And inside of that is my new contact, which we already talked a little bit about, where I have bot detection, urgent communication. So if it is urgent, it will text me. It will tell the person, hey, I understand your request is urgent. I bypassed his D&D notifications and shot him a text message. Okay. It will detect aggression. It will tag them as aggressive and just quit responding. And if they get tagged as aggressive, ooh, we do some fun things with them later. So I solved this communications problem about a week and a half ago. I stopped getting spam text messages. Oh my gosh, what a relief. Well, then I realized I'm getting tons of spam phone calls. Totally different problem, right? Because how do you handle spam phone calls when you need people to have the ability to call you? Because you can't send all of your call. Like, I'm not sending Matt DeCino's phone call to a voice AI. Oh my gosh, he'd murder me. I mean, he wouldn't. He'd probably think it was funny, but like, and Matt's just not that kind of person. But like at the same time, like he's my boss. Him and Graham and Tiffany and Mallory and Danny and my EA and everyone that I work with need to be able to get a hold of me in the event that something's urgent. So what I did is I came up with in my opinion, relatively ingenious system for being able to have more intentional phone communications. Because again, communications anxiety stems from not just an absurd amount of contacts, not just an overwhelming amount of text messages, but also an insane amount of spam phone calls. Like, I can't tell you how much it gave me anxiety to the point where I literally just turned off the ringer on my phone. It didn't vibrate. It didn't do anything. It just automatically silenced every single phone call that came in unless you were on D&D bypass, because it was stressful. I was missing phone calls left and right from people that I really cared about. And believe me, I regret sincerely some of those communications that I missed. And I cherish the voicemails that those people have left me, because some of them, not all of them, are here today. And that is a really hard thing to grasp at times, is that because of my anxiety and the volume of communications that I get, that I would miss out on lifelong friends and family who, chosen or blood, who reached out to me, and some of whom passed away in the last year. And I didn't talk to them because I was so anxious about answering my phone and looking at my call log because of how many spam phone calls I was getting. So to that end, I came up with a relatively clever solution using Twilio Studio, Mint Mobile, and HighLevel. So let me show you how that works. All right, so this is Twilio Studio. So Twilio, everyone knows as Lead Connector. They know it as a way to basically glorified forward phone calls into an app, and have two-way communications into an app. Well, let me show you what I have done inside of here. So inside of Twilio, I have an incoming call that comes in. It checks the number using N8N. So inside of N8N, I have essentially a webhook that searches the contact in HighLevel. If the contact comes in with a certain value in the routing value, so in their contact profile, sorry for the screen jumping, guys. I'm trying to be cautious about sharing people's personal information. So inside of the call router custom field in HighLevel, I did not use tags because tags can conflict. I used one clear contact custom field. And in that contact custom field, I have known, priority, bypass D, and Rickroll. Rickroll is a fun one. I'll explain what this does in a minute. But I have in here bypass, meaning that when this person, David Rawls, calls me in the morning for our meeting, it will bypass it'll flag into N8N as bypass right here. So it'll flow through here, and come out with bypass. When it comes out with bypass, it responds to Twilio's number check. So this is an HTTP request, aka basically a webhook. I should probably technically use a GET as opposed to a POST, but it's literally no different. In this case, it determines the route. So what it does is it says, if a condition matches one of these, fall down the specific tree. So in this case, if the condition equals bypass, to fall down and connect the caller to my Mint mobile number, which is the second eSIM on my iPhone. So on iPhones and Androids, most newer iPhones and Androids, you're able to have 2 SIM cards and 2 phone numbers on that phone. Well, fun fact, you can star 72, aka forward all of your calls to one specific SIM card and receive all of your calls on another SIM card. So bear with me while I explain this. I am forwarding all of my calls from 301-643-6381, aka the number that I've had for like 18 years. I'm forwarding all of those calls from, and that was back when like the red Motorola beep phones and the ancient like Nextel phones were a thing, right? Like just short of the briefcases. But anyways, I'm forwarding all of my calls from my 301 number into Twilio. From Twilio, when it receives that call, it checks that caller against my contact database and determines what to do with them. If they equal bypass, it connects them directly to the phone that I have on my second eSIM through Mint Mobile, which is a 216 number that is totally private that no one will ever see, except my EA. She has that number. But then what happens is if they are unknown, no condition matches, or any number of other reasons why, they will fall down into my GHL voice AI. Inside of my voice AI, I have my agent list, which has my agent, Ollie, as my AI assistant who can potentially help people. So Ollie will pick up the phone, and let's just test what Ollie sounds like. Hopefully you can hear this.
Hi, my name is Ollie. I'm Mario's AI assistant. How can I help you today?
Yeah, I'd like to know if Mario's available to chat.
Hey there. Just checking in.
So Ollie's going to pick up that call, which I do have to do some fine tuning because it's a little bit, I'm not a huge fan of the voice. But anyways, long story short, my voice AI with its agent goals tells who Ollie is, what Ollie's supposed to do, how they're supposed to handle people that come in, various calls. So I wrote this prompt. This prompt is largely HighLevel's native prompt, by the way. There's not very much that you actually have to do to HighLevel's native prompt in voice AI because Arat and the team over at HighLevel have done a phenomenal job. I just want to give a huge shout out to HighLevel. This would not be possible as easily as it is without you guys knocking it out of the park with your voice AI. So major shout out to Arat, the project manager or product owner, and the rest of the team at HighLevel for the amazing job that they have done with their voice AI platform. Anyways, so during the call, if you ask to get a booking link, it will send you a booking link, which sends to my 5-minute calendar. After the call, it extracts your first name, last name, and the purpose of the contact. If you don't give me all 3 of these reasons, I don't get notified. And I don't care because you weren't willing to take the time to talk to my voice AI and go through the process. Right? So then if it determines that you haven't given all the information and or you got aggressive and or you were a pain in the butt and or any number of other reasons, what I did is I actually have a 3rd number, 4th number, I don't know, I have a bunch of numbers, but I have another number inside of HighLevel that is tied to automations. And inside of my automations, if I go into this one, this does various tagging and other purposes. Basically, this handles the actual manipulation of the contact. The specific one that I want to show you, which I don't know why this thing keeps showing up, but the specific thing I want to show you is this one, is my DND routing. So I actually have in my system an IVR that IVR is not just press 1, press 2, press 3, play a message, blah, 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 blah. IVR actually dynamically in real time will handle your call routing. So it's just like Twilio Studio, but specifically for HighLevel. Why do I use Twilio Studio? HighLevel's IVR has some challenges. HighLevel, reach out to me if you want to talk about them around call forwarding and everything else. If I had my cake and could eat it too, I just route everything through HighLevel and wouldn't need Twilio Studio. Would make life so much more simple. Anyways, in the event that someone contacts me that I don't want to talk to, that I have either explicitly declared as spam, my AI has declared as spam, or has called me multiple times and failed to follow the process, eventually my AI will declare them as spam. If they do, it will play all 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Most people so far have thought this is hold music. The longest I've gotten is like 2 minutes and 30 seconds before they said F this and they hung up. If they do make it all the way to the end, it says, sorry you suck, the call will now be ended. That is my system for managing personal communications. Now, there's a bunch of workflows and other things behind this that are, which I don't know why this won't go away. There are a bunch of other workflows and other things behind this that have various things that they do. But that is the very long-winded, now going on almost 40 minutes explanation of why I have anxiety from communications, how my phone got to 12,000 contacts, how I bombed it to hit 0, repopulated it with 5, and then grew this new, what is now a living organism, essentially, of contact system, all powered by Twilio, CloseBot, HighLevel, N8N, and Make. HighLevel and CloseBot are the major pieces of why this communications works. I am thoroughly impressed and cannot stress enough how important HighLevel and CloseBot were to this process. Could I have gotten around it without Twilio Studio? Absolutely. Could I have gotten around it without Make? Probably. N8N? Probably. But without HighLevel and CloseBot at a bare minimum, none of this would be possible. So I am Mario Aldayuz, and I am powered by HighLevel, CloseBot, and MyCRMSIM. Thank you so much.